right, looks like we're live. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. Friday the 13th, 2023. What better way to spend Friday the 13th than inside of a campsite, telling ghost stories? Maybe if you had a laptop with, you know, hotspot, you could watch a creepy movie in camp. Right now, where I'm at, I'm at a place where I call it the Cougar Camp. Um, just because there's a mountain lion that lives nearby. So I've had one encounter with him, but I've seen his tracks many times. One time it circled my Jeep. I had arrived at this place, was only here for a few minutes, and then I walked out away from the Jeep and I saw very fresh mountain lion track. And then I followed the track, and the tracks completely circled my Jeep. Um, had that a couple of times. There's no carcasses or anything, so it's a mountain lion doesn't hunt here, but I know it's here. But it doesn't bother me. That's one thing about what I do. Danger is a fact of life with what I do. So, being a professional treasure hunter, I run into every type of animal encounter you can think of. Mountain lions, bobcats, rattlesnakes, scorpions, black bear, uh, people, the environment. Danger is a fact of life. But spent 10 years in the Army. I have over 20 years of survival experience out here in the Arizona desert. So um, I do the best I can with what I got, and it's a fun adventure. I love it. And so I'm going to start doing these YouTube lives more often. Tonight's the first night of me doing YouTube lives, and I couldn't think of a better day to do it than Friday the 13th. This is awesome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cody Drake. I'm the Arizona Treasure Hunter. I'm a professional treasure hunter, and I'm on the Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, and Amazon Prime for being a treasure hunting expert, historian, and survivalist. So, just to kind of do like a little history about me, I'm actually a native Texan. I'm from the great state of Texas. God bless Texas. I was born in Amarillo, Potter County, on March 5th, 1985. Lived there for a couple of years, first 2 years of my life. Then my family moved to Temple. My father raised horses, and he was a farrier, so he would do shoeing on horses, corrective shoeing, and he rode the rodeo circuit, team roping. And then he ended up getting on with Farm Bureau Insurance, which paid a lot better than the rodeo circuit and shoeing horses. So when we lived in Temple, we would go to Salado, Texas a lot. Salado, Texas plays a pivotal part in my life later, about 30 years later. But eventually, my dad got a promotion, and it took us to Arizona. And I was 8 years old when we moved here to Arizona. And the moment we arrived here, my father got religiously involved with gold prospecting. And I was a daddy's boy, so I was along for the ride. My childhood in Arizona was being raised prospecting in every single mountain range Arizona has to offer. A lot of places that we prospected aren't on maps anymore. I was an 8-year-old boy. I had a 9-round revolver on my hip that I won with money from bull riding or from steer riding, mutton busting, and then steer riding. So, gosh, yeah, I won the money doing that, and then my dad bought me a pistol, and we were out prospecting. We were gold panning, we were sluicing, we were dredging, we were dry washing, doing a lot of metal detecting. That was my childhood. It was so much fun. I got to meet a lot of old-time prospectors, and this is 1993. Remember that. I'm 1,000 years old now. And 1993, I was 8 years old. We were in Wickenburg, at a place called, it's north of Wickenburg. It's called Stanton. Old Western ghost town and old gold mining camp from back in the day. Still produces a lot of great gold, by the way. It's the area of Rich Hill. And we went there, my father and I, we went to Stanton, and there was a family there, a very large family, and there was this one old man. He looked like the crypt keeper. He was so old. Very nice man. And my father was getting involved with gold prospecting groups, treasure hunting groups, and I'm a daddy's boy, so I'm along for the ride. And he said, "Son, you go with that man, and because you will never." And my father said this: "You go with that man. You will never have another opportunity like this in your entire life ever again. I promise you. Go with that man." And I said, "Okay, Dad." And so I walked with this man who's walking with his entire family, and he's old, so he can't walk really well. So his family's helping him, and we walk maybe 100 feet, 150 feet over, and there's a grave. It's a pile of rocks, and they're placing a headstone. There was nothing there before, but they're placing a headstone, and the family's talking. They're sharing stories and stuff like that. And when it got quiet enough, and I asked the old man, "Who's buried here?" Because they didn't say it for me to overhear it. And the old man, he was like 104, 105 years old in 1993. He says, "That's my father. He was killed here by Apaches." And remember, 1993, this guy's 104, 105 years old. When his father was killed, his mother was pregnant. This guy was probably like, his father was like in his 40s when he passed away. And hearing this man say that this is my father, killed here by Apaches in this canyon. And I'm looking up at him, and it made me realize that history is not that far away. And I've never forgotten that. And I've never had that situation ever occur in my life again. So my father was right. And it was really that moment that made me hooked on history, all kinds of history. I love Viking history, Roman history. I love the classical age, the Iliad and the Odyssey. But my family is steeped in Civil War history. We were a Southern family. But like my family, we have relatives in the American Revolution, the War of 1812, the American Civil War, and my family, like my great grandfather was a Texas Ranger. He fought the Karankawa, he fought the Kiowa, he fought the Mexicans, he fought the Comanches, and he settled in North Texas, Paris, Texas. And my mother, after my father passed away, moved back to Hugo, Oklahoma, which is just 20 miles north of Paris, Texas. So my family is like steeped in American history. But yeah, through the years, did a lot of dry washing, dredging, gold panning, and it was so much fun. Most of it was in the Bradshaw Mountains. Did a lot in the Pinnell Mountains, like Pinto Creek. Pinto Creek has a lot of good gold. And there's actually mercury in that creek, if y'all didn't know that. We pulled out a lot of mercury from the Pinto. Six Shooter Canyon, which is just south of Globe. There's a lot of good gold there, but it's all claimed up now. Did a lot of stuff on Mingus Mountain, which is known as the Black Hills. And then did some stuff in the Gila Mountains. Just everywhere. Wickenburg. Oh my gosh, Wickenburg. How could I forget Wickenburg? Castle Hot Springs Road, the Little San Domingo Wash, the Big San Domingo Wash. Gosh, it's a lot of history there. A lot of history. The Little San Domingo Wash, I remember a lot of old timers popping a lot of gold nuggets in that creek. And in the early 2000s, there used to be a lot of violence out there. There used to be a lot of theft, burglaries, vandalism. There used to be a lot of crime out there. Little Castle Hot Springs Road, Little San Domingo Wash. A lot of that when I was growing up. Learned how to track out there. My father taught me how to track. My father was a 22-year Marine Corps veteran. He was in Vietnam twice. He was ordnance disposal in Vietnam. And his first tour of duty was in 1968 during the he got to Chu Lai, is where he was stationed, and then he was around the city of Hue during the Tet Offensive, and he was a part of the retake of the city of Hue by the Marines. So, yeah, he had a lot of pretty dark stories. Pretty dark stories. And he actually didn't open up about those stories until I joined the Army in 2008. I spent 10 years in the Army, 6 years active, 4 years reserve. And when I was active duty infantry, 11 Bravo. I am the infantry, follow me. Um, yeah, when I was a kid, I learned to track along the San Domingo Wash, Big San Domingo Wash, Donkey Mountain. And there's a lot of old Spanish stuff out there, Spanish trail markers, Spanish monuments, um, thousands of gold mines going from the 1800s into 1900 up into the 1950s. There's no current mining operations out there that are like, full on production, but there's a lot of like thousands of prospecting claims out there where small time prospectors like myself get to go out there and enjoy the claims. Lots of exploring, lots of old mining camps out there. A lot of those old mining camps have the same stories as old ghost towns, gold mining camps, silver mining camps, copper camps, turquoise camps. Um, Murder, prostitution, and mining. That was their history in a lot of those camps and a lot of those towns. Tombstone, Arizona, Bisbee, Arizona, Jerome, Arizona, all the same story. Mining, murder, prostitution. What else do you need in life? Just, just kidding. Ignore that. But I had a great childhood. I learned an awful lot from my father and the old timers. And if y'all follow my Facebook page, I'm just about to hit 60,000 followers on Facebook. I every week I post lost treasure stories that could be found here in the state of Arizona. Sometimes I do treasure stories about other states, but mostly I just consolidate around Arizona. Just because Arizona has the largest number of lost treasure stories than the entirety of the United States combined. We have them all. We have stuff from the Jesuit treasures, like we have lost Spanish mines, gold and silver mines, Spanish gold bars lost in the wilderness, especially the Superstition Mountains. That mountain range, I think, has the most lost treasure stories in Arizona. But we got bandit loot, we got lost silver mines, lost gold mines, we have robberies, stagecoach robberies, train robberies. We have stuff from like businesses getting robbed, and then the people who robbed those locations getting hung for unrelated incidences in different towns or cities. So, um, yeah, we have a lot of lost treasure stories here in the state of Arizona. And every week I try to share between 1 and 3 lost treasure stories throughout the entire state of Arizona. So I'll talk about lost treasures in Tucson. I'll talk about treasures that could be found in Kingman or Prescott or the Winslow area or Yuma or like Bisbee, or Phoenix area, Globe, Miami, Claypool, Wickenburg. Like I try to cover the entire state. So it doesn't matter where you live in the state of Arizona, I'm gonna find a lost treasure that's in your area that you can go after. Um, and a lot of these stories were given to me by old time prospectors like my buddy Tom Papa, Ray Wright, and then my father, he learned an awful lot from a lot of old timers, and my father passed away in 2012, and he was my greatest friend in the entire world. All my prospecting and treasure hunting and tracking and camping, survival skills, he got me started on it all. And he was like the rock in my life. And for those who don't understand that analogy, let me just grab a rock. I'm out in the desert, so they're everywhere. With a rock, you can do everything. It's sky's the limit. With a rock, you can build a foundation on which you can build a home. With a rock, you can become stable. With a rock, you could build and grow. My father was my rock. And when he passed away, my rock was gone. And I had to figure life out on my own. And people say that it heals with time, but that's a lie. It's a lie. It gets harder with time. When you love someone that much, they're no longer there, nothing hurts more than that because you achieve things in your life that they should be there for to experience that with you, but they're gone, and that's where the pain is. So I miss him every day. His birthday was yesterday. He would have been 83. He passed away in 2012. He was 71 when he passed. So, but I learned a lot from my father. He gave me a lot of these treasure stories. Tom Papa, um, Tom Collenborn, Buddy Wright, David Fox, Ray Wright. You know, I got a lot of these stories from them, and these guys have been around the area. They've been ranchers, prospectors, engineers. Some have worked at the nuclear power plant. Some have retired from the railroad. Some have retired from the Baghdad mine. Some have retired from the mine in Globe. And these are old timers, and they've got a lot of stories. And I've got their stories for all of you to enjoy. Lost treasures that you can go after. And a lot of Arizona is, you know, open land. It's state land, federal land, but you can still go out prospecting and metal detecting. You just have to look up the national forest that you're going to be in and follow the rules and regulations, follow the laws. And if you find a lost treasure like gold bars or silver bars, just go to the Forest Service and file what's called a treasure trove permit. It's going to cost a little bit of money, take a little bit of time to wait, but you can actually get a permit to go excavate lost treasures. So what are you waiting for? If you're doing a lost treasure um, project, if you're searching for something, I advise doing research, proper research, because there is such a thing as bad research. If you're going into the mountains and you're chasing signs and symbols and they're leading you in circles and you're finding all of these signs and symbols, and you're not finding a square head nail or a horseshoe or a single artifact, your research is probably bad. So take a step back, start over. What are you doing wrong? Look at those that are succeeding and what are they doing differently? You know, take that into account. Um, know yourself, know your strengths, your limitations, and hone your strengths into a fine, sharpened blade. Your limitations, you can make those grow. You can make those strong assets. And I admit, I use Google Earth a lot. I do. But I'm the biggest advocate of boots on the ground. I don't do drone stuff, but I'm thinking about getting a drone. I'm thinking about it. Um, I still do things the old way, just um, research, research, research. A lot of my research is old military documents, archival information, maps, and a lot of letters. I like to read a lot of letters from um, my forte is Spanish colonialization. So, you know, Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, Antonio de Espejo, Don Juan Onate, Veragras, and, you know, Cortez, Pizarro, all of these Spanish conquistador expeditions into the New World, I'm obsessively researching them, reading their accounts, reading the journals of men who went along with these conquistadors on their expeditions. And different expeditions had different lengths of leagues. A league is a distance traveled. We use miles today. The rest of the world uses kilometers, but back in the day, they used leagues. The rough Spanish league is 2.5 miles, but under Coronado and Espejo, it was 3.05. Well, the equivalent, one league was the equivalent of today, 3.05 miles. During Father Kino's time, it was 2.93 miles per league. And so you have to take these different measurements into account when they're talking about distances between pueblos and rivers, or from one pueblo to another pueblo, or crossing a vast desert that was like 40 leagues in circumference. You're going to have to figure out the distance of each league per expedition in order to understand exactly where they were camped, where they were going, how they traveled that land. And I do a lot of map overlaying. So the one thing that changes throughout time is place names on maps. What stays the same is terrain features. So if you are reading these accounts and they're talking about a certain river or a certain mountain range or lomas, which is Spanish for hills, um, they could be referring to these hills, and then the next expedition they're traveling the same route but using different names. Well, if you take a map of that time period, you can match up these place names with what they're talking about in those documents. And you take that map, you overlay that with our modern map, and that's how you find some sites. And then you research who owns that land, and then you can reach out to them and say, well, um, I'd like to mail detect your property or treasure hunt your property or explore your property, and just be polite. And if you gain permission, then whatever you find is strictly between you and the landowner, because the people of the United States own the government. That's the beautiful part. Because we own the government, the people of the United States, if you gain permission from a landowner to treasure hunt their property and you find something, no local, state, or federal agency has any say in what you and the landowner come to an agreement on. If you find 1,000 gold bars, it's between you and the landowner because it's private property. Especially if it's deeded land that you find it on, boom. These are the biggest tips I can give you guys. Oh, lived a fun life. Spent 10 years in the Army, active duty 11 Bravo. Good times. Bad times, crazy times, some embarrassing times. Good times, though. Served with a lot of great men. And now I'm a full-time bartender. Besides being a professional treasure hunter, I have a day job, and I'm a full-time bartender. So today I worked from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. and I'm exhausted. And then I'm taking time out of my day to do this YouTube live. And then tomorrow morning I'll be right back at it again, 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. doing figure eights behind the bar, slinging margaritas, making old fashions, doing martinis and Manhattans, and yeah. And then sharing Lost Treasure stories with my patrons behind the bar. It's a good time. I don't advertise where I bartend, but if you follow my pages and you know where I bartend and you come in, if we're busy, I really can't talk about treasure hunting just because I have to bartend. I have to get one patron in, one patron out, and I'm handling food, I'm handling alcohol, answering the phones, and I'm doing all this stuff. But if we're slow, I can talk about treasure all day long, all day long. It's my passion in life. I love it. And today actually marks the 1-year anniversary of my divorce. Yes! Freedom! That was a bad marriage. Bad marriage. Divorces suck, no matter if they're mutual or not mutual. Mine was mutually agreed upon, and it sucked. I wasn't allowed to go treasure hunting, camping, exploring in any way. Should have got out of that mess a long time ago. Couldn't be happier now. I'm making the most money I've ever made in my entire life. I'm on the most amount of adventures I've ever gone on in my entire life. I have the strongest group of close circle friends that I've ever had in my entire life, and I have a wonderful girlfriend that I love very much, and she has been on a crap load of adventures with me, and it hasn't left me yet. So I got that going for me. It's awesome. And oh my gosh, I have so many ghost stories to share with y'all. So the longest stint I've ever stayed out in the desert alone, just by myself, treasure hunting, was 58 days and 57 nights, alone in the Arizona desert. I knew a family who owned a cattle ranch, and we were on deeded land. I have one of the coins in my pocket. I went out there to treasure hunt a property, well, treasure hunt on their land. This was 33 square miles on their property. Sorry, I got a wad of cash from bartending tonight. I'm a bartender. That's money. And I went out there for 5 days. Initially, I was going to be there for 5 days. And I asked the landowner if I could go out there to search for this lost treasure on his property, and he said, you know, I know who you are, and um, I trust you, and where you're going, we're not going to be using that until the spring. And this is July. This is like the 20th of July in 2005. I yeah, I only had enough food for 5 days, and I ended up staying for 58 because here's why. On the second day, I found a site where I thought this is a awesome campsite. This is so easily defendable. It's at a junction of a couple of canyons. There's water nearby. It's really fortified. This is a cool place to camp. So I camped there for one night. And the morning of the second day, I started metal detecting, and I found some weird iron things which I couldn't identify. And I remember finding like a piece of like a bridle, I like old metal rusty bits, and I found a ring, like a pin with a ring on the top. Found out later on that was from a picket, where you would picket the horses, and that's where you would hobble your horse in camp. But one of the things I found, this was the first coin I found. It's a 1794 8 real silver peso from King Carlos III of Spain. And this coin was as black as the night behind me when I found it. I was ecstatic when I found this coin. I was so happy. I was just in dumbstruck awe that I'm holding a coin. Even though it's black, you could see the writing on it. You could see the face on it. You could see the markings on the back of the coin. I left. I started walking away. I packed up everything and I walked away. I'm like, I found treasure. I found a Spanish silver coin in the Arizona desert. Yes, I was so happy. And then I stopped about 100 yards away from where I dug this up. And I thought, well, what if there's more? So I turned around, went back, and I stayed for 58 days. And I pulled up over 1,000 coins. I pulled up so many artifacts. This was colonial Spanish, um, like mining implements, tack, a lot of military items. I was finding buttons. I was finding a lot of really unrecognizable iron objects. And there was some broken weapons. The funny thing is, I was finding broken arrowheads, like flint points, in the sandbar that I was in. And then throughout the days and the weeks that are passing by and stuff like that, you know, I'm living off of jackrabbit, rattlesnake. I make Paiute deadfalls everywhere I go. If I'm camping in an extended period of time, I'll make Paiute deadfalls. I'm using peanut butter and raisins that I had. And, you know, I'm eating a lot of prickly pear pads, prickly pear fruits, because this is July, August, and September that I'm out here treasure hunting. And so I'm also eating cattail reeds, the cattail root. There's a type of cholla which produces this yellow fruit. It's really good. I'm making stews all the time. And while I'm out there harvesting and hunting, I'm metal detecting too. And I found the broken flint arrowheads in the sandbar and flattened musket balls on the ridgeline above. So they were shooting up at those who were shooting down at them. And all of the coins were actually found in a straight line, going from the camp into the creek, up the hill, and the coins stopped at the top of the adjacent hill. And that's actually where I found my 3 gold coins. They were found together in the same square foot. Now, with these coins that I found, if you're ever hiking around the Arizona desert or just the southwestern in general, like the southwestern United States in general, you're going to come across ancient pottery. Now, this pottery could be 200 years old, it could be 800 years old or 1,000 years old. It could be from the Hohokam, the Anasazi, the Salado people, the Sinagua culture. It could be from the Apache. It could be from the Ute, just depending on your region where you're at. But that pottery is on top of the ground, and it's 1,000 years old. It's 800 years old, 600 or 200 years old. The coins were no different. Pieces of them were sticking up out of the ground. Now, the gold coins, I remember swinging my metal detector, which was a Tesoro Lobo. It's about as archaic as you can get, at least in my world. Tesoro Lobo metal detector, and it screamed just weep, weep. and I looked down and I saw the coin. So the metal detector found it first, and when it found it, I looked down, and gold does not tarnish. It was just as bright as the day it went into the ground. And a piece of it was just sticking up like that. Funny thing is, just about 20 feet away was a Snickers bar wrapper. Some hunter had stepped over them and had a snack because there was the Snickers bar wrapper and a shotgun shell just about 20 feet away from the gold coins. Now, on the 58th day, another funny thing, I had just finished making a stew, and it was probably jackrabbit or rattlesnake, I can't remember. And I was just staring at the pot. I still have that pot, it's in my Jeep. And I was thinking to myself, I really want some ice cream. So I packed up my camp and I drove to Globe and I got some ice cream. I think I ate like a full gallon of chocolate ice cream. Went back to that area, went to the landowner, knocked on his door, and cleaned myself up as best as I could. And I said, come outside in about 10 minutes. I'm going to lay down just a couple of tarps. I'm going to show you what I found. And, I did. He came outside, and this was a hardcore Mormon family. And the guy cussed for the first time in like 10 years, his wife said. He was just like, mother effer. And he saw like some broken weapons. There was a few knives in there. There was what I found a couple of broken swords, and they were very ugly swords. They call them espada anchas. What espada is just sword, and then ancha is wide, so it's wide swords. And the hand guards were still there, and the tang for the blade was still inside of the hand guards, and the blades were just broken. And then there was a couple escopetas. One was in really cool looking shape, and the rest of them were pretty rusted to the weight of the dodo. But there was a lot of, odds and ends things, and some of the things we figured out were candlesticks. Some of them were corners of pieces of like a trunk, like a small wooden trunk. They were like the corner pieces and the clasp for it. And then a lot of mining implements. I found a wooden batia. If you don't know what a batia is, that is the wooden gold pan used by ancient Romans going into the Moors and the conquistadors. And then the coins I were finding were from the 1700s, the late 1700s. I think 1721 was the earliest coin. There was a lot from 1767, 1768, 1769, and then the 1780s. And like this one, 1794. And most of the coins had King Carlos III's face on them. Well, anyway, the landowner, he said, I have a horrible problem with livestock poaching on my land. I'm going to take the weapons and give them as gifts to my family because they're going to just eat this up. And he said, you take the coins. And I asked why. I'm like, we could split them up because there's like 1,000 of them. And he said, I can't stop the poachers on my land. If that gets out, I can't stop the trespassers from destroying my property. And so we agreed. I took the money, and he took a lot of the military artifacts, and that's the deal we struck. And I ended up giving him some coins anyway. And since then, that land has sold a grand total of 4 times over the next few years. It's when the gentleman passed away. I'm not going to say his name or the family's surname, but when the gentleman passed away, it passed to his kids, and they all each sold their parcels off, and then it sold to another family who I think the land went up into foreclosure, and then it was auctioned. It went to like a new family who didn't pay the taxes on it, so it went to a sheriff's sale, and someone bought it a couple of years ago. As far as I know, they're still the owners of it. But I'll be going out there in a couple of weeks to ask permission to go on their property again. But if you don't do the research, you're not going to find stuff like this. If you do the right research and things start to add up, let's say you're doing the research and you're at a site and you're finding it's the right artifacts of the right time period in the right location. A plus B equals C. Then you're probably doing something right. If you're going out into the desert or to the woods and you're following signs and symbols and you're finding more signs and symbols and shadow markers and megalithic statues and you're finding all these treasure symbols and it's just leading you in circles and you're not finding artifacts, just stop. Recollect yourself. Think about what you're doing and not finding anything, and go ask people, hey, what are you doing successfully in finding stuff? Let me see what you're doing differently than what I'm doing. And I have people every single week that reach out to me about like my opinion on Spanish signs and symbols, my opinion on Jesuit treasures, or my opinion on sun shines, shadow signs, and there's just so much out there. There's bandit loot, there's Jesuit treasure, there's Spanish treasure. There's just so much out there. There's so many lost gold mines and silver mines in the Arizona desert. The Bradshaw Mountains alone has over 100,000 mines that have been legally worked over from the time of like the 1860s, because Prescott's got its gold rush, I think, in 1863. From 1863 until about 1930, over 100,000 gold mines were in operation in the Bradshaw Mountains. Now, if you were to find a gold mine that was from back then, like from the 1800s, in the 1800s, if you had a gold mine that produced 1 ounce of gold per ton of earth removed from the earth, it was enough to keep the mine going. You were essentially, in operation. It could cover overhead cost. If it ever dropped beneath that, I'm sorry, let me back up. That's wrong. That's wrong information. In the 1880s, if the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you had to have a gold mine that produced 3 ounces of gold per ton of earth removed. 3 ounces of gold. If it dropped beneath 3 ounces of gold per ton of earth removed, they had to shut the mine down. If it was 3 ounces of gold or more, they can keep overhead costs, they can keep production going. But if it dropped beneath 3 ounces of gold per ton of earth removed, they couldn't cover overhead costs, so they had to shut it down. But today, if you found that same gold mine that was shut down, and it produces just 1 ounce of gold per ton of earth removed, you're a millionaire. So I explore a lot of old mines. I explore a lot of old placer mining camps, old mining towns and stuff. And again, my childhood was different. I went to a lot of places that aren't on maps anymore, but I remember those places. And there's a lot of places that were metal detected back then heavily, but they weren't metal detected by good metal detectorists. So if a place that you go to metal detect seems like it's picked over or something like that, no site is ever picked clean. There's still a few places along Castle Hot Springs Road, like the Little San Domingo Wash and the Big San Domingo Wash, which still yield gold nuggets. Rich Hill still yields gold nuggets. There's places along the Hassayampa River, Black Canyon City area. There's still gold nuggets being found over there. Good research and field work, and you'll be successful. Yeah, I love this stuff. I love talking about treasure. So much fun. Looks like we just hit 39 minutes. I should start wrapping this up. I gotta wake up early and bartend another 14-hour day tomorrow. I just wanted to take time to come out here and do this first YouTube live. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. Hope everyone has a fun weekend, fun, exciting, adventurous weekend. Do something spooky and fun. Go to a haunted ghost town, stay in a haunted hotel, go to Bisbee or Jerome or Tombstone, Arizona. I hear that the Globe High School is incredibly haunted. Go check it out. And I hope everyone has a fun, safe weekend. And I'm gonna be doing these YouTube lives I'm gonna try to do them once a week, but I guarantee I'll be doing them once every 2 weeks. It's hard to be in a place where I'm in a camp that has cell phone reception and enough reception to get live on my social media accounts. So if I have the reception, I'm gonna do it. But I have a lot of good things on the horizon that are coming this way. Like I said, I'm on the Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, and Amazon Prime. Discovery Channel is Rob Riggle's Global Investigator, Season 1, Episode 4, Mysteries of the OK Corral. Mysteries of the OK Corral. I was Rob Riggle's treasure hunting and survival guide on the show, treasure hunting expert. And Travel Channel, same thing, but just with a different person. And Amazon Prime, I was the treasure hunting expert for a Lost Touch in Mind documentary, which has aired on August 10th, this past August, and production of the DVDs for the documentary are going to be out around Christmas time. But I have new shirts being made. I have new merchandise on the horizon. Check out my website, ArizonaTreasureAdventures.com. And I'm going to be doing presentations in Winslow, Arizona, and Salado, Texas coming up. This is going to be so much fun. And my book's coming out. I wrote a book. That's a big thing. My treasure hunting book is going to be out before Christmas time. It's going to cover a lot of lost treasure stories here in Arizona. It's going to cover signs, symbols, trail markers, tips and tricks for success on your treasure hunting projects. And it's going to talk about, the life I've lived so far and my successes, my struggles. And it's going to have a crap ton of treasure hunting information, metal detecting, gold prospecting, and exploration, looking for lost mines, looking for lost silver ledges, treasures, like, Spanish, of course, because I'm obsessed with the Spanish conquistadors. It just makes sense to talk about the Spanish conquistadors. I'm going to talk about all that stuff in the book. I think it's going to be over 50 lost treasure stories I'm going to list in the book, all the stories that you're going to be able to go after, and I'm going to have a few others that are like shorter stories that are lost treasures here in Arizona. So got a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. You got to check it out. But stay tuned. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please hit subscribe and help the channel grow. And hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Happy Friday the 13th. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to try to do some metal detecting before I got to go into work in the morning. There's a gold mine just on the other side of this hill, just beneath me. And it started off in 1876. It closed in 1890. It reopened in 1900. And then it ran until 1932. And that's when it was shut down. And it's literally a field of buttons. Like, imagine buttons from the 1800s up until the 1930s. After every single heavy rainstorm hits this place, it's just button, 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 button. It's just incredible. But also a mountain lion lives here, so I have to take all this into consideration and stuff. I love my life. But I just wanted to thank everybody for supporting my project, being the Arizona Treasure Hunter. I couldn't do this without your support. I value each and every one of you. And I hope everyone has a fun, adventurous weekend. I'll try to do this again next week. So have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe, stay alive, keep treasure hunting.